Hi there, how are you?
I am
Hello.
so good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing absolutely great. I am looking forward to this talk, this open-ended conversation with you. And I'm so happy to be here because I've heard that you are about you so much. And I'm looking forward, really looking forward to this.
Ah, Dr. Taher, you're my favorite. Well, listen, let me introduce you to our audience. You and I have met a couple times, but maybe our audience isn't so aware. This is Dr. Akil Taher. He is a family practice physician in Gadsden, Alabama. He is well, I'll let him tell you a little bit more about his specifics. He is still practicing. He just wrote a book about a year and a half ago called Open Heart, the transformational journey of a doctor who, after bypass surgery at 61, there it is, ran marathons and climbed mountains. Amazing, amazing. I am so glad to have you here today. So,
Excellent. I am so happy to be here. To your audience, let me tell you, I wear three different hats.
and what are they?
And I wear a hat of a resurgent physician that I treat the cause of chronic diseases rather than the consequence after it has happened. Number two is that I am a septuagenarian athlete, that at the age of 61, I started running marathons and climbing mountains. So that was a very, very important thing for me.
Yeah.
And I also believe very wholeheartedly in a whole third is a whole food plant-based diet, which I believe can not only uh, treat, prevent, but reverse coronary heart disease as well as other chronic diseases.
Right, right. So for you yourself, you've actually had experience of all of these things, right? Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now. What was your health journey like that? Now, I know you're 70 plus years old, right? So it's a long journey you had. So let's like just give me like the Reader's Digest version of how it went.
You see, Meryl, I always tell people I'm not 75.
Mm.
I'm just 15 years old because I transformed my life at the age of 61.
Ah.
I have a long way to go.
Mm.
Now, prior to that, my life was eating unhealthy food, being a couch potato, no exercise, having a lot of stress, which I did not know how to handle. So, and being a type A personality, I wanted everything under my control, and genetics were bad. So, my brother died at the age of 52 of a stroke. My mother and sister died at the age of 69 of heart disease. So, and apart from all this, this was what led to a stress that I could not handle, and I had um, coronary blockages, the
Mm.
arteries that run to the heart,
Mhm.
and they put stents into me. My first thing about the stents was that I had a cardiac arrest, my first encounter with death, and
Mhm.
they had to shock me to get my heart beating again. That's not the sad part. The sad part is a cardiologist who saved me that day died of a massive heart attack while he was on his treadmill, and he was only 44 years old.
Oh my goodness.
So heart disease is the number one killer. Make no mistake. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in US and the world wide.
Right, right.
So that was, and then when my stents failed, I was into severe depression, almost took my life at one time. And then I went on, my stents failed. So it was back at the hospital this time for an open heart surgery. And during that time, something happened. And I don't know to this day what it was, but I believe that subconsciously I realize that I have only two options left now, either to continue this unhealthy lifestyle that I was leading and get ready for death, or to make a conscious decision to really start living my life with passion, purpose, and positivity. And I
Nice.
chose the latter. And so here I am doing the things that I want to do, meditation, yoga, sky breathing, all that helped me a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why you're only 16.
True, true.
Nice. Nice. You know, it's so interesting what you say about having a type A personality, right? There are
Right.
many of us who suffer with this burden of the type A personality. I don't know that I have that, but I think I do. I've never been diagnosed, but I think I have that, right? A lot of us do. And a lot of people in the medical field have that.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we couldn't continue through school and all the pressures that are we're under when you're training and then go into working with other people and trying to save and change lives. That's something that's a particular personality type that goes into that. I heard not long ago actually that one of the major killers of cardiologists is heart disease. It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is amazing that you brought this up, Merrill. In my small town, Gadsden, we have got about, uh, say, 15 cardiologists.
Mm.
You will not believe. 10 of them have got stents.
Oh no. Oh,
So, how can you treat somebody for a heart disease when you don't know how to treat yourself?
yes, isn't that true?
In a way, they're great
Yes, yes,
doctors, they're excellent, but you have to understand that the only way out is our nutrition.
yes. It's the missing piece, right? So, just a
Absolutely.
little story. My husband's aunt, who has since passed on of other illnesses, um, was a dedicated overeater, right? She loved to eat. She was a foodie. Oh my goodness, she loved food, right? Sweetest woman I ever met in my life. Love her to pieces. Anyway, she wound up having a heart attack. That was no surprise. She was very heavy, overweight. After her heart attack, they, well, of course, they did the cardiac cath and they put in the stent and they saved her life. Anyway, as she was in recovery and we were sitting there, I was helping apply pressure to the place where they put the catheter in through her groin, right?
Right.
She was having trouble recovering. She was really, really struggling. And they called in the cardiologist who had done the catheterization. This very handsome young man walks in. I'm going to guess he wasn't 50 years old. I saw barely any gray hair. He's a beautiful young man walks in and he starts to apply pressure and he told them to raise the head of the bed and made some certain changes which made a difference for her. And at one point I said to him, this is my husband's aunt. She lived with us for a time. We switched her to a whole food plant-based diet. She was able to cut all of her 17 different medications in half. Some of them they stopped completely because of the way she changed her diet. Not much else changed. And he said, oh, yeah, I've heard about that whole food plant-based diet. I could never do it. And I said, what do you mean? Of course you could do it. You went through medical school. If you went through medical school, you could do just about anything. And he said, oh, no, I could never give up cheeseburgers.
Wow.
That was his answer. I was blown away.
It was
Just
it is
plain
it
blown
is
away.
so important that when my patients are there, that when I tell them to give up dairy, the next time they come in about 3 months, they said, I'm not having any dairy. I said, really? That's great. What about cheese? Oh, no, no, no. Don't stop me from cheese. Because you see, a lot of milk is required to make small amount of cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Casein in the dairy product becomes casomorphine in the cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Casomorphine in the cheese becomes addictive.
It does. That's why it's so hard to quit. And I'm here in Wisconsin, right? This is the dairy state.
Yes, yes,
No
yes.
one's trying to stop cheese consumption in Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
But
It's sad. It's sad, but we are getting somewhere. We are
yeah,
making sense.
we are. So let me go back a little bit in our topics. So you are a doctor, a family practice doctor, and have been practicing medicine for how long?
40 plus years.
A long time. Beautiful. Okay, so here's my question for you. You are in the South, where we know that there is a higher or a steeper trend in a lot of areas toward high blood pressure and heart disease and diabetes and things like that. Do you see, or tell me how you see that starting or getting, how does it get going with children? How does it start?
You see, first of all, let me tell you that the South has all the deep fried foods and fatty foods, and South is the worst. If you look at the South, it is the worst. Then comes your Southwest, and then your Northeast, and then comes the West, which is the healthiest. The healthiest states are Hawaii and Massachusetts in the north, and even Utah. These are the healthy states.
Mm,
In Alabama, for example, you will find because of excess to foods, healthy foods is lacking. Money-wise, it is lacking. Education-wise, it is lacking. So all this we can discuss. But what I believe that nutrition is extremely important for children, starting with children.
mm,
Because, see, it is for their growth and it is for their development. Now, when we talk about development, we talk not only about the physical development, milestones of development, like when the baby starts to crawl or when the baby starts to sit or stand or walk, but we are talking also about the brain development, the motor functions, the social and emotional development. You see, studies have shown that the first 1,000 days from conception to 2 years are extremely important for future health of a child. So, what this does is that if you have somebody who is, say, for example, in this is important in pregnancy, in infancy, in childhood, that will offer the health issues, health benefits. So you have to understand that even as a pregnant lady, if you are going to have alcohol, you can get fetal alcohol syndrome, maybe, where
right.
the facial features are obliterated. Then you have listening problems, vision problems. You have your concentration is lacking. Your
Right, some
concentration
cognitive,
is
yeah.
lack. Your a lot of things in future can be, and one of the things is obesity. Again, pregnant ladies who go on to drugs, they can get drug withdrawal babies. They have withdrawal syndromes where they have a sharp cry, they have seizures, they shake, and all these can lead to further problems of blood pressure, diabetes, and heart disease, and whatnots, other cancers in the future.
Hmm, hmm.
So that's my first thing, that we have to be very cognizant of the fact that we try and keep this 1,000 days from conception to the first 2 years extremely important
Yeah.
in
I just read results of a study. I didn't read the whole study itself, but it was talking about, it's just, this is a study that was just published, I want to say June or July of 2023. And it was talking about um, research that was done. I think it was something more than 76,000 children, where they looked at the diet of the mom during pregnancy and how the child did developmentally by age 3. And there was, I'm going to ballpark this, something like 47 to 51% increased risk of developmental problems in these children. And what they connected it to, of course, alcohol and drugs is like an obvious problem, right? But they weren't looking at that. They looked at moms who were not doing anything unusual, right? Nothing obviously detrimental to their pregnancy. But what they connected it to was the fiber in the diet. And we know that fiber only comes from plants, right? So that moms who are eating a highly processed diet where all the fiber has been removed, so it's a lot of white bread and sugar and white rice and lots of animal products and all these other fun things like candies and sodas and all that stuff. Their children actually had quite a big increase in their risk of problems with fine motor movements, problems with social connection, problems with just plain developmental issues. Very interesting research that was done.
This was so eye-opening what you're just telling me, because you're supposed to have at least 38 grams of fiber a day. An average American has 15 grams.
Right.
I don't believe in the 38. I believe in 60 to 70 grams of fiber, because fiber does one very important thing. It creates healthy gut microbiome.
Yes.
And that is related directly to the brain, this thing of how you develop and other things. Therefore, you find that people who have high fiber get less gallbladder disease, less constipation, less diverticulitis. I mean, there are so many people who have got diverticuli, and we doctors tell them, oh, don't worry, you've just got pockets in your colon. Don't worry, as long as they're not inflamed, it is okay. No. How do you get the pockets? Because of straining during stool, during your bowel movement, you strain, and therefore the weaker lining becomes pockets. Then these pockets get inflamed and infected. You have hit the nail on the head by saying that one message your audience can take today is increase your fiber in your diet. And also one important thing is sugar. When you take sugar, processed sugar, no, that's bad. There's no fiber. Your corn syrup and all that.
Right.
But when you take fruits, you have fiber with the sugar. That means you are absorbing sugar in a way the body is supposed to do, not spike with the processed sugar up and down. That gets into your blood.
Right.
And all the saturated fats that you have and all this cholesterol, what does it do? It's not sugar that causes diabetes. It is these things that plug into your, because whenever you have triglycerides, and it actually goes to the cell and helps you in energy. When your energy, if these are plugged in with fats, they cannot use for energy, the cells, and they come back into the blood, causing the sugar to rise up.
Right.
So it's very right. Fiber.
Yeah. And we only get it from plants. That doesn't come from anything else. And I guess I should say, maybe you can explain this a little bit. So I see that we can go to the grocery store and we can find bottles of fiber, right? Little packages. There's, containers, and you can add it to your water. You can add it to your coffee. Do you think, just your opinion, do you think buying fiber extracted from plants, or I don't know, is it created in a lab? I don't know where they get that stuff. Is it the same if I added it to my water, or just no?
Not at all. Not at all. Because these are processed foods, fibers. They have things that you cannot pronounce, but they're still fibers. Yes. So my advice to my patients is that anything that you pick up in the supermarket and you cannot pronounce, don't buy it. Yes. That's number one. Number two is your fiber that you have in your natural whole foods, the beans, your legumes, and all that. You're not going to get the same fiber. Having said that, not having fiber at all is worse than having fiber through pills or Metamucil or other things.
Yeah.
So that is my take on it. Now, we are having a biggest crisis in this country, and the biggest crisis is nutrition.
It
And
is.
see, why don't we catch them young? Because you see, if you look at it, your nutrition is your leading cause of death. The sad American diet is your leading cause of death. And that translates into heart disease and chronic diseases, strokes and all that. And therefore, you have about 40% of the people in the world who are obese. But when you come to the Western countries in America, there's 60% of the people who are obese. Now, why? Why is it so difficult for adults to change their diet? See, it is easier if you catch them young. But
Yes.
why is it so difficult? Because the brain comes in the way when you're an adult. In the subcortical region of the brain, there is a strong emotional pull towards those unhealthy foods that we have been having since childhood. And therefore, and these foods caters to our emotions like pleasure and belonging.
Yes.
To all sense. So if you've got a tough day or a rough day at work, or you're sick and you're trying to get better, you crave for these so-called comfort foods.
Yes.
And there is no way. So if we try to change as adults, it becomes very difficult, because what happens, the brainstem, as soon as you want to change, your brainstem comes into way and says, wait a minute, don't do that. That's not good for you, which is good. It is not good for you. And you get irritated and you get frustrated. So you go back onto your comfort foods. So as adults, it is possible to change, but it becomes difficult.
Yes.
So what do you feel? What is a solution?
Yeah.
Catch them young.
Yeah.
Catch them young. But even when we catch them young, what really happens is we don't go about it the right way.
So tell me about that. How do you see it happening, and what do you think should go differently?
See, healthy eating in a child is going to help for the lifetime. But the way we go is wrong. What do we say? Be a good girl or a good boy, eat your veggies, and I'll give you a cookie.
Yes.
Wrong association. We are actually telling them to have a cookie, which in the first place we don't want them to have. We want them to have veggies. We are giving a wrong association and signal that veggies are, whatever veggies are, they are good for you, but they're not this thing, so I will give you a cookie.
Right.
The signal is sent to the child that when he or she grows up, they will always go on to that cookie, and because that was a thing that was given in small quantities. And so now, wrong, do not shout, do not bribe, do not force. This is to the parents.
Yes.
But you have to make positive associations. These are negative associations. That you shout at then saying, if you don't, or if you say, oh, I'll give you a piece of cookie, have all these bad things. So you are telling the child it's bad.
Right.
What you do is, when you catch them young, you have to understand healthy fun. Make it like stories when you're young. I'm telling you, it works. I've seen some of my patients when they do this. You have, like, for example, make a train of carrots going into a forest of broccoli trees.
Yes.
Clown with two grapes with carrot as a nose, and make it interesting for them. Also, involve them into meal planning. Involve them to make things. Never mind if they make a mess in the kitchen, but then they realize this is good. This is not bad. And eat at home with the family, home cooked foods. That is when the whole family gets around. Because otherwise, what happens? You have a problem if all the people are not on the same page in the family.
Well, this is true.
Now, think about it, Meryl. We have so many divorced families. So if they're divorced, one spouse may be eating healthy, the other spouse may not be.
Yes, this happens often.
What is the result? The child gets confused.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm saying. And do not expect instant gratification when you're young. It takes about 15 attempts with one food to the child before it gets used to it and likes it.
Right,
So
right.
be prepared for a lot of spinach to be thrown back at you.
You know, about that, Dr. Taher. So I remember raising my kids. So two things, what you were saying. I used to tell them, they would come to me and say, we didn't have a lot of candy. We didn't have a lot of money actually back those days. So there wasn't a lot of candy. There wasn't a lot of junk. I made what money I had count in food, right? So it was always beans and rice and vegetables and fruits and grains and stuff like that, because I wanted as much nutrition as I could get for as little money as I had, right? And I remember my my son would come in and say, "Could I have raisins?" And I would say to him, "Have you been good? Have you been good enough for raisins?" You know, so they grew up thinking that, this is the reward of the century,
Wow. I never thought of that. I never thought of that.
It's so
You
funny.
want them with raisin, you want them with dates.
Yes, yes, oranges and apples and things like
Yeah.
that. That's so funny that you bring that up.
I never
That's so
thought,
funny.
because all we reward is giving them, pastries and
Yes, cakes and candies and things
donuts.
like
And,
this. Yes, yes.
and in fact, when my pharmaceutical companies used to come to me, they would bring a blessing of donuts. And one time I got so mad. I mean, I got angry. Those days I was young. And
Mhm.
like I said, I had a type A personality. I said, I will not let you come in over here unless you get carrot sticks and celery sticks. Don't come with these donuts,
Yeah, yeah,
because that is what they're doing.
yes,
I
yeah.
go to the my gym, and people get around that gym. They're exercising, and they're getting donuts for people to eat.
Awful, awful. It is such a conflicted culture that we have, where we complain about the rising cost of medical care and how insurance doesn't cover what people need covered, and the cost of medications and how many people are on medications, the shortage of nurses and the number of doctors, and we have all of this talk, right? But yet still our culture feeds those problems, right? Literally by pumping donuts and pizzas and processed meats and things like this. It's a difficult conundrum, There's
Correct.
a lot of
But
people
what
that
are the problems we face? You see, because why has this happened?
mm.
It has happened because of the food industry.
So
It's
tell me a
our,
little bit about that.
see, it's our biggest problem. There are no laws to govern packaging, labeling, or advertising.
Mm,
Absolutely no laws.
mm, mm,
So if you go to a supermarket and you see all these healthy food, unhealthy foods that are lying around on the shelves,
mm,
colorful, green, orange, yellow, superheroes.
yeah,
You go to McDonald's and you get superheroes for getting a French fries.
right.
While all the good food, your cereals that don't have sugar, that have a lot of fiber, like you talked about, are gray, green.
Mm, mm,
Nobody wants to go there. The children don't want to go there. And
mm.
then they tell you that a bar of chocolate is equivalent to a cup of milk.
Oh,
Even I don't believe in dairy, but still, it is wrong, because a bar of chocolate not only has processed sugars, but has palm oil,
right,
the saturated fat, an
right.
immense amount of processed sugar, while a cup of milk does not. But they say that this is equivalent to a cup of milk.
Mm, 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 mm.
So what do? We have the breakfast cereals in the children's this thing, because we are thinking about children,
Right.
because they grow up. The children is, if you look at the uh, place where they have the cereals, 40% more sugar than the other cereals.
Yes, that's right.
And that is, so what happens? a study was done, I think, if you increase more nutrient dense foods in your supermarkets and other places and decrease your calorie dense foods, if you reduce this by just 20% in 40 countries, we could save $13.2 billion.
Oh my gosh.
And
Never
this
mind how many lives, right? And how much
increase,
suffering.
so many lives saved, and so much of GDP increase.
Yeah.
But we are not doing it. So what we need to do is individuals, I know it may make a very small, minuscule dent, but go around and talk to the manager of the supermarket. Why are you putting all this big companies' profit and in terms of our health? And do that.
Yeah.
But this is a problem, and this is a problem that we don't know what to do. And everybody is responsible, even schools. Think about schools, okay? Think about medical school, think about engineering school, think about regular schools from to 11, kindergarten. They are teaching in school geography, they're teaching math, they're teaching mannerisms, they're teaching conduct, they're teaching how to behave, how to do, but not about nutrition,
Right.
which is so simple. I had in my medical school 0 hours of nutrition in the 70s. My son, who is also a physician, who is now 48 years old, had 15 hours of nutrition in 4 years.
Wow.
I think less than 15, 10 hours.
So when you say hours, you mean like count them on your fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, yes.
Not like he had one whole course for a whole
No,
two or three whole courses. Yeah.
No, hours, in hours I'm talking about.
Wow.
And they and the medical association or schools, medical schools, they say at least 20 to 25 hours. But that is not enough.
Yeah, no.
You need a lot more. Nutrition is science and art and everything involved.
Yeah. Well, not only that, nutrition, when we look at it, right? Early on, back, 1,000 years, maybe longer. Nutrition was the medicine. That was all they had. They didn't have pills and extracts of things and, antibiotics and, IV things, right? Obviously, food was it. One of the places that I found one of the types of study, I guess, that I found most interesting was herbology, looking at the medicinal aspects of herbs, right? And that's how we started. To think that we have come so far away from what occurs naturally, that actually the body can recognize and actually functions well with the chemistry of the body to affect cures and healing, to have come so far from that is very disheartening, and that we don't think about food as medicine the way we used to 2,000 years ago.
There are two aspects to it. One, the doctors know about this. I mean, they've not learned, but they know there's something in nutrition, but they cannot practice because there's no money in it.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, the big pharma, the dairy industry, the meat industry, they're not letting you do this.
Right.
They've got muscles. We don't have that muscles. We are trying to build the muscle to fight them. But it's an uphill task.
Yeah.
And we are the pioneers because you and I are the people who are starting this movement. I mean, there are people like, say, Esselstyn and T. Collins who started, but we are there all in hands together.
Right.
But that is the important thing that it's shocking that when you have a healthy diet of a whole food plant-based, it makes so much of a difference, Let me tell you one thing over here. The chronic diseases, whether you have obesity or blood pressure or diabetes or what have you, they all have certain things in common. And what does a whole food plant-based diet do? It's sort of the most important thing is inflammation.
Yeah.
So, what whole food plant-based diet does is reduces the inflammation. It reduces oxidation, which is another big problem. Number three, it increases the telomeres in your cells so that your longevity with good health has improved. It decreases the sympathetic overstimulation of the sympathetic nervous system on an ongoing basis that can cause chronic stress. What does chronic stress do? Cortisol. And what does cortisol do? Eat more. And when you eat more, what happens? You become obese.
Right.
Sleep apnea. Then you get diabetes. When I came to this country, I never saw anybody a diabetic before the age of 45, 50.
Mm.
And 15 and 20 years old, even 10-year-olds, I'm seeing as type 2 diabetes. And then it also does is a most, it changes the expression of your genes.
Yes.
Your diet. Lifestyle medicine changes the expression of your the genes don't change, but because of your healthy lifestyle, the expression of your genes changes.
Mhm.
Therefore, genes is only 10 to 20% of your health outcome. And that too can be changed by genetics, which the expression of the genes. So that is my main thing about. And then finally, when you have all these, you know that these are chronic diseases, and therefore all these things combined together can be solved by whole food plant based. But another thing that is ego in the minds of scientists and all that.
Mm.
How can a simple thing like this can solve so many things?
Mm.
That's the thing. They have to have graphs. They have to have studies, deep studies,
Right.
and then show to people, oh, this is what was done. But it's simple. No matter what your problem, chronic disease, no matter what medicines you are taking right now, I don't care if you're in bed or on a wheelchair or whatever, change your diet.
Mhm.
That's all I am asking. If
Yes.
you are a whole food plant-based diet, your medicine level is going to go down, and eventually you may have to give that up. But what's the harm? I'm
Right.
not asking you not to listen to your doctor. I'm only adding whole food plant-based diet
Right.
to your regimen of every day. So that is tremendously, to me, it was bad,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And if we start that to bring it back to our young people, if we start them early, exposing them to healthy foods and keeping the processed, I'm just going to call it crap. That's calorie rich and processed food, right? I love that acronym, crap, out of their diets. They may never come to the point where they have diabetes. They may never have heart disease. They may never have to deal with high blood pressure. Certain cancers wouldn't show up, right? Or at least a drastically reduced risk. The other thing, just as you're saying, yes, genetics and epigenetics, so important. The expression of our genes. The food, like you said, is information, right? In fact, I was talking to Dr. Milton Mills just a couple weeks ago, and he was saying that food is software. Our body is the hardware. The genetic mechanisms, those are the hardware, and what we put in as food directs the expression, as you're saying, right? So if we told this and gave this opportunity to our children, we taught it in school, we taught them nutrition, we exposed them to delicious, healthy, whole food, plant-based foods, maybe our kids would never have to suffer with these illnesses.
right. What did Maimonides say way back? No disease that can be treated by nutrition or food should be treated by anything else.
Mm, mm,
That's number one. Number two was food can either feed disease
mm.
or fight disease.
Yes, yes.
And what we are doing right now in America is our food is feeding our disease.
Feeding. And among children, so rapidly.
Obesity is staring in your eyes.
Yes.
Obesity is something that is going to have a big problem. We'll be spending trillions of dollars.
Very.
Think about it. In 2009, 158 million children in the universe aged 5 to 19 were obese.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we are projecting in 2030 that figure of 158 is going to be 254 million. Can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
In the last 3 decades, childhood obesity has doubled in children, triple in adolescents.
Oh.
Now, this is 2021. In the US, 19% of the children and adolescents 2 years to 19 years are obese.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to do about it? What are the consequences of this?
Yeah.
See,
Well,
you have short-term consequences,
Hmm.
long-term consequences.
And along with that, there is the steep rise in, like you said, diabetes, right? And the steep rise in ADHD or ADD. There's a steep rise in autism. There's a steep rise in almost all of these things, right? And at
Correct.
some point, in fact, okay, so here's some numbers just for people to think about. I think it was in 2006, maybe. Autism diagnosis was 1 in 110. That was the rate, right? In 2018, I believe it was 1 child in 44.
Wow.
That, yeah. And now, 2023, 1 child in 36. Now, is the rate of autism actually increasing that steeply? Or have our diagnostic criteria changed? Is there something else going on? But my goodness, no matter what, that
It may not be a double-blinded study, but it's observation.
it
It's an
is.
observational study.
My
This is
goodness.
going up. In ADHD, my partner's son is ADHD
Mhm.
in Alabama.
Mhm.
And she has done a lot of work on ADHD, and she has got a master's in that, and she's bringing up that child the way, but it is caught up. What can you do?
Right.
And you see, we forget one thing. We never get into the minds of these obese children that what happens to them. See, they are immediately poor self-image.
Mhm. And bullied.
They get bullied. And then it translates into poor school achievement.
Yeah.
So that teachers and all look down upon them. They come home, they are scolded by their parents of having it. These are the immediate things that can lead to stress and depression,
Yes.
then overeating and obesity. And where we have, you know what? Children with obesity have a higher risk of severe respiratory disease if they have COVID.
Oh,
Yes. And they also have, if they have COVID, a multi-system infection much more relative to healthy children.
interesting. Interesting.
And this is true in so our problems are risk factors for childhood obesity are so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it starts from unhealthy diet. But I always tell people that sometimes they say we don't have the money or the time.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand the time aspect of it because I had a very young mother who was a staff in my clinic, and every evening she would go to McDonald's or Burger King. And I asked her one day, why don't you feed your children healthy? She says, no, they're used to it now. So they need that. And besides, my husband works, I work, I don't have time to cook. And this is cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
But where I want to bring things is make time.
Yes.
This is your children's lives.
Yeah.
If you can buy in bulk legumes and beans and fruits and vegetables. Don't go to Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and Publix and all that. Go to your farmer's market.
Mhm.
It is, I have done in farmer's market and I found out that this thing, it is 50% cheaper.
Mm.
A DeKalb farmers market in Atlanta is 50% cheaper than what I do in in Publix.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So buy in bulk, keep your Saturday, Sunday, make soups,
Right,
freeze them,
right,
take them out and give them. That is okay. Than to give them French fries and all that,
right, right, right. And
So
so
it is so
often,
important. And you become because what did COVID do? COVID had schools closed.
mm,
Okay, so once it was schools were closed, there were confinement at home. And once there was confinement, what happened? Most of our schools in America either subsidize food or give free food.
yes.
Correct. Now that thing was gone. They were home. Now the parents were working, and
Uh-huh.
even if they were not, they're not used to what to give them in the afternoon
Right. Well,
because they sent to school. Not
right.
there.
So many parents told me that they don't really know how to cook.
Correct. So
Yeah.
they don't know, or they're working. Now the question is, what does a child do? You give them $1, $1.50, and say, okay, go to McDonald's and get something, or they use vending machines.
Yeah. Oh,
Put the coins over there, get their chips, get their sodas, and that creates more unhealth.
yeah.
Unhealth is, I mean, this thing is, so the idea is that once you are home, another problem is what with the COVID was that your screening time, not being active, screening time was much more
Mhm.
looking at your phone, looking at the television. And that screening time, eventually you're sitting at home, you don't know what to do, you get depressed.
Mhm.
So that limited this thing, of it created a big problem of COVID. And this will show in future because that 2-year period has created a lot of problems which will come to haunt us in the future.
Yeah. 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 I agree completely. Such a gnarly problem, right? Little knots upon knots upon knots of problems. I want to thank you for your time. This has been such a great conversation. We've waited a long time to get this one in the
Wow.
books. So
Wow.
grateful for you. Is there anything else that if you had like one additional pearl of wisdom for our audience, is there anything that you would like to let them know?
I would love to let them know about the importance of sleep
Ah, yes.
in children and adults.
Yeah.
It's one of the very important pillars of lifestyle medicine. We always talk about food and exercise, right? But we never talk about sleep. We take it for granted. We have work, we have to sleep.
Mm.
But it is wrong. You see, you must remember that uh, we need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. If we don't get this, we are in a problem. And we have two sets of sleep. Just bear with me, it is not rocket science.
Yeah, yeah.
It is non-rapid eye movement sleep, not for your audience, non-rapid eye movement sleep and rapid eye. Non-rapid eye movement is deep sleep. And it is divided into 4 phases. The first two are very deep, and then there's light deep. Then you have, it comes the rapid eye movement sleep, where you start dreaming. So if sometimes your eyes open from a very deep sleep at say 3 o'clock, and then when you go back to sleep, you start getting dreams because it happens later on, the rapid eye movement sleep. Now, everybody sleeps differently. You sleep differently from me. The circadian rhythm, they did a test. They thought it was sunrise and sunset, that you slept and when it got dark, you slept. No, there were 2 people who were put into a cave for 1 month, 3 months, with not a single light, complete darkness. They still slept at the same time and woke up at the same time.
Huh.
But the circadian rhythm is different. What you call as a morning larks and the night owls.
Okay.
To cite you an example, I'm a morning lark. My wife is a night owl, truly. I get up early in the morning, I start doing my things, and I'm ready to go to bed at 9 o'clock.
Yes.
Wife gets up later on and she works till in the night. Now, what does society do? Society tells the morning larks, praises the morning larks, rewards the morning larks. Wow. Why? Because our schools start open very early.
Yeah.
So early to bed and early to rise makes you healthy and wise is no more true. Because those night owls do the same work. That is why Apple and Google put their offices open all throughout so they can go anytime and work.
Mm-hmm.
But the social benefit of community benefit is there. So we would circadian rhythm, but more importantly than that, sleep. We have discovered in the past 10 or so years that you need sleep after learning to essentially save the new memories in your brain. But recently, we have discovered, very recent, that you need sleep before learning to actually prepare your brain to learn new memories. So what they do is they took a handful of people and let them be no sleep for 8 hours, no coffee, nothing, no sleep. And the other ones got sleep. Then they put them in the MRI scan the next day, and they opened up and they made them study a few things during that time. The people who had not slept, 40% less they could grasp than the people who had slept. So you need sleep before also studying. So we had in my time, you are still young, but my time, we used to have all-nighters.
Oh, sure we did.
Which is not true anymore. Which is not true anymore. Because it does not. So what my point is that why does this happen? Because it's hippocampus, both sides of the brain, and this takes in all this new learning. And then once it is learned, it sends to the cortex for permanency. But the moment you're not sleeping, hippocampus is dead. Does not take things. Now, having said that, I want you to think about one very important thing: sleep loss and cardiovascular system. This I found very interesting. I'm reading a book on why we sleep. This is a global experiment for 1 hour, performed every year on 1.6 billion people across 70 countries, twice a year. It is called daylight savings.
Yes.
Right. Now, in spring, we lose 1 hour of sleep. What we found that subsequent 24% in increase in heart attacks the next day, along with accidents, along with suicide rates.
My goodness.
And in the autumn, when we saved that 1 hour, there was 21% reduction in heart attacks and crashes and accidents and suicide.
Wow.
That's 1 hour. So immune system, the natural killer cells that we have, 70% of your sleep is restricted to 4 hours. They will not work, even for one day. So my old thing that was there, I will sleep till I fall dead, is not true anymore. And here are my few things for your audience. Go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. Use your alarm not to get up, but to know when to go to sleep. Your weekends should be the same as your weekdays. Keep your room cool, 75 degrees. 65 degrees. Your body needs to drop your core temperature by 2 to 3 degrees. Sleep is non-negotiable biological necessity. If you are lying in bed for 20 minutes and you're not getting anywhere, get up, get out of the bedroom and start doing something else before you fall asleep. Think about the analogy. You go to the dining table, you don't wait to get hungry. You are hungry. So why should you be waiting on your bed to fall asleep? This is my end, that sleep is a non-negotiable biological thing. I hope that your audience enjoyed our conversation. I enjoyed it very much. And you brought in some new insights, which I really liked a lot. Thank you so much, Meryl.
You are so